I have devoted my life to the global challenge of providing adequate food production for a growing world population.
From the day he was born on March 25, 1914, Norman Borlaug has been an enigma. How could a child of the Iowan Prairie, who attended a one-room school, who flunked the university entrance exam, and whose highest ambition was to be an athletic coach, ultimately accomplish more than any other one individual in history in the battle to end world hunger? Born into a small farming community, Norman Borlaug was introduced to agronomy at an early age. However, his grandfather strongly encouraged him to pursue education rather than work on the family farm.
Borlaug graduated from Cresco High School a champion wrestler with a fighting mentality that he would apply to all aspects of his work. He later said, "Wrestling taught me some valuable lessons. It made me tough. Many times I drew on that strength." Borlaug was accepted to the University of Minnesota's less prestigious counterpart, but his hard work and dedication won the teacher's support, allowing him to transfer into the University of Minnesota's College of Agriculture. At college, Borlaug attended a lecture by Elvin C. Stackman, the head of the plant pathology department. His speech discussed wheat rust disease, a parasitic fungus that feeds on wheat crops across the world, claiming millions of crops that are vitally necessary for human life. Borlaug was captivated and approached Stackman after his speech. Recognizing a kindred spirit, Stackman offered Borlaug guidance and advised him to pursue a career in plant pathology. In order to finance his studies, Borlaug took several jobs, one with the Civilian Conservation Corps, working with the unemployed on U.S. federal projects. He later recalled, "I saw how food changed them. All of this left scars on me." This experience with starving people would stay with Borlaug all his life and fuel his passion for helping others. In the 1960s, food supply in the world was noticeably declining, and several countries were on the brink of famine. The baby boom of the post-World War II era had dramatically increased world population, along with the disparity between the affluent and poor in developing countries such as China, India, and Mexico, causing a severe deficit in world food production. In the mid-1900s, most experts agreed that global famines would soon occur due to Malthusian growth. Biologist Paul R. Ehrlich wrote in his 1968 bestseller, The Population Bomb, "The battle to feed all of humanity is over. In the 1970s and 1980s, hundreds of millions of people will starve in spite of any crash programs embarked upon now." This prophetic statement appeared to be coming true at an alarming rate. The Rockefeller Foundation, aiming to help countries under the strain of a rising population and a falling food supply, formed a committee of expert scientists whose goal was to boost wheat production in Mexico, which at the time imported a large portion of its grain. Borlaug was sent to Mexico with an army of scientists, but was shocked at the apparent lack of sophisticated equipment. Yet there was no time for delays. Borlaug was a man with a mission: to eradicate world hunger by creating the paragon of wheat crops. But this would take years of dedication and perseverance, using unconventional methods and a radical mindset by developing 3 innovations that would leave lasting legacies on the world of agronomy. High-volume crossbreeding. A serious problem in Mexico was epidemics of wheat rust. The objective of Borlaug's first innovation was to breed varieties of wheat that were resistant to stem rust, using a process known as crossbreeding. Most plant breeders made only a few dozen crosses each season, while Borlaug's approach was to crossbreed thousands of different lines, nearly 60,000 crosses in 16 years, in hopes of finding even one that was resistant to prevalent rust and yielded well. This tedious work resulted in rust-resistant lines adapted to conditions in Mexico. Yields from these varieties ranged from 20 to 40% higher than yields of those they replaced. Shuttle breeding. Initially, Borlaug's work was concentrated in the Central Highlands. He realized he could take advantage of Mexico's 2 growing seasons. He would breed wheat in the Central Highlands as usual, and then immediately take the seeds north, because the differences in altitudes and temperature would allow more crops to be grown each year. Changing the wheat's architecture. Mexico's wheat varieties were naturally slender and tall, and inefficiently used heavy applications of fertilizer to increase yield. But the problem with these varieties is that they would collapse under the weight of extra grain and from rapid growth spurts caused by fertilizer. What Borlaug needed was to locate a suitable source of genetic dwarfism to better support larger seed heads. In 1952, success was achieved after crossing a Japanese dwarf wheat with a high-yielding American wheat. This was then crossed with Borlaug's disease-resistant wheat cultivars. The potential yield of these wheats was a dramatic increase, 6 times larger than in 1944, the year Borlaug had first arrived in Mexico. Years of Borlaug's hard work had resulted in Mexico becoming fully self-sufficient in wheat production and a net exporter of wheat. Borlaug's next task would be to plant his newly developed wheat in the Indian subcontinent, where India was at war with Pakistan, and the two countries were experiencing widespread famine. The U.S. had tried to alleviate the situation by sending shipments of the grain to the region, but it wasn't enough. Borlaug wanted to plant his new wheat strains there, yet the Indian and Pakistani bureaucracies and the region's cultural oppositions to new agricultural techniques prevented this.
The stage is set, the technology is there, it's been proven, it's been tested, and now it's up to you.
But by the summer of 1965, the famine was so acute that the governments allowed Borlaug's project to proceed. A few years earlier, Ehrlich had written, "I have yet to meet anyone who thinks India will be self-sufficient in food by 1971. India can possibly feed 200 million more people by 1980. But in fact, India now would be able to, relieving her dependency on foreign aid."
I had a dozen American agricultural extension advisors on my team, and we jumped at the chance to introduce his technology.
And Borlaug's legacy continues. Ever since the 1960s, food production in India and Pakistan has increased faster than the population growth. India's use of high-yield farming has prevented 100 million acres of virgin land from being converted into farmland. This transformation demonstrates what has come to be known as the Borlaug hypothesis, which states increasing the productivity of agriculture on the best farmland can help control deforestation by reducing the demand for new farmland.
Today, India is capable of producing about 230 million tons of food. But what is going to happen? By the 2020, we need nearly double the food. So now we have to go through what is called Green Revolution 2.
Yet not everyone supported what Borlaug was doing. Critics believed that Borlaug's high-yield wheat was displacing the traditional systems of agriculture, such as the chinampas or floating gardens in Mexico. Others claimed that a focus on wheat changed the diet of India, which had previously maintained much of its land for growing rice and pulses. Perhaps the most vehement of criticisms was the threat of genetic pollution, which described the risks associated with giving traits to crops that are not naturally present. Contradicting the green values of today, experts worry that Borlaug's work in using high-yield crops is in fact damaging the environment. Due to the massive amounts of chemicals in groundwater needed to sustain these crops, critics are concerned that the decades of increased food production will not last. However, in order to fully understand the legacies of Borlaug's actions, one must weigh the negative effects on the environment with the number of human lives saved. Whether good or bad, this remarkable transformation in agronomy that began in the 1940s has become known as the Green Revolution, the increase of productivity or quality of the world's food crops. Though Borlaug has by no means eradicated world hunger, his work has made significant strides in making food available to the starving populations. Today, Borlaug is hailed as the father of this movement and is credited with establishing green revolutions around the world. Work currently continues in sub-Saharan Africa to maximize food production.
I think it is recognized now among governments worldwide that they need to do more of the kind of research that Dr. Borlaug did back in the 20th century to try to get the food production to increase faster than population.
For his humanitarian contributions, Borlaug was bestowed with numerous awards, including the Nobel Peace Prize in 1970.
The actions of the individual in history, whether large or small, are catalysts leaving a changing legacy on our world, which shapes modern society. Norman Borlaug is an enigmatic individual in history. His actions in the fields of agriculture and bioengineering, such as developing revolutionary techniques for crop modification, have paved the way for modern agricultural sciences and genetic modification. As the man who has been credited with single-handedly saving much of Asia, Africa, and Central America from starvation, Norman Borlaug's legacy of the Green Revolution lives on today.